I'm divorcing you because my mistress is pregnant with a son. You're a defective product for not bearing a son. So get out. Mistress? You can't mean that woman. Pointing at the woman next to her husband, Brian, the woman retorted with displeasure. Don't point at me. I'm Aurora. How rudely middle-aged of you. That's right. That's why I'm dumping you. Brian and Aurora sneered. I was dumbfounded. How can she openly admit to being a mistress? Normally, you'd hide such a thing. And to divorce because his mistress is pregnant? There's a limit to making selfish claims. Does he have any idea how much I've put up with? Well, divorce suits me fine. I have plenty of evidence, and he's admitted to the affair. I'll discard this husband for compensation. I'm going to bring him to the lowest of lows. Prepare yourself. I clenched my back teeth and headed to my room. My name is Serenity. I'm a 43-year-old housewife raising 4 daughters. My eldest, Luna, is 11 and in middle school. Stella, 9, is in elementary school and mostly takes care of herself. But the younger 2, 5-year-old twins, Mary and Lily, still need a lot of support. Still, I cherish being able to care for them now. It makes these precious days all the more enjoyable. You might think we have a happy family, but in reality, we don't. The in-laws I live with, Dominic and Hazel, are always complaining about me, and Brian is hardly ever home. Our marital and family relationships are as bad as they can get. Brian must be cheating with someone somewhere. Of course, I've hired someone to investigate Brian's conduct, but the girls need their father. With that in mind, divorce doesn't seem so simple. My resentment only grows. If it weren't for living with Dominic and Hazel, it might not have come to this. It's regrettable, but there was nothing to be done at the time. Brian and I met through a mutual acquaintance. Back then, I was working as a hairstylist at my mom Grace's salon and was close to a woman in the neighborhood named Natalie. I know a man about your age who frequents my favorite jewelry shop. Natalie started talking about this man. His name was Brian. He appeared to be the heir to a jewelry sales company, an elite graduate who was too busy with work to meet women. Why don't you meet him? I'm not in the same league as an elite. It's just a meeting. Eventually, I couldn't refuse and agreed to meet Brian. But when we actually met, we hit it off surprisingly well. I was impressed by his fondness for children, and his elite status made him quite smooth in handling things. That's how we started dating with marriage in mind. After Brian proposed to me, I accepted the marriage. However, when we went to a family meeting at the in-laws' house, Dominic said to me, "Our family runs a business. Both my wife and I are busy, so we prefer a daughter-in-law who can manage household chores." "I live with my mom, and I take care of the household chores," I replied. Hazel's attitude changed upon hearing this. "Oh? If you're good at housework, let's live together. It'll be more convenient for both of us, right?" I was surprised. I couldn't see how it was convenient for both of us. But, without a chance to express my opinion, the decision was made to live together. I thought it was a mistake, but it was too late for regrets. Brian seemed to agree with the living arrangement. "Well, we can discuss living separately once we settle down. Brian will be on my side, so it should be fine." I compromised. This was a big mistake. As soon as we got married, Hazel dumped all the household chores on me. "Serenity, I'm off to work, so please take care of the cleaning and laundry," she said. "Yes," I replied. Hazel became an employee at Dominic's company, but it was only on paper. Essentially, she pushed the chores onto me and went out to enjoy herself. The atmosphere wasn't right to bring up living separately. I sighed in resignation. Still, I could endure being burdened with housework since Brian's income was good and I had become a housewife after marriage. Despite my complaints, I earnestly tackled the chores. However, one day, Dominic asked for a favor. We're in a bind because a part-time employee took off. Could you help out at the store? His company was a jewelry sales business involved in wholesale and also owning retail stores. He was essentially asking me to work as a salesperson. Though I had my grievances, I was living with Dominic. If I were to refuse, it would sour the atmosphere at home. Reluctantly, I accepted the job. That was my second big mistake. Dominic, encouraged by this success, frequently asked for my help at the company. I missed the chance to refuse and ended up doing whatever Dominic asked. Honestly, I was even considering divorce. Then, I discovered I was pregnant. When I shared this with Dominic and Hazel, they were overjoyed. Wonderful, Serenity! You must prioritize your health now. No need for household or work chores. Yes, right. I must inform the relatives. Dominic began contacting relatives in a flurry. Watching him, Brian spoke to me. Sorry, Dad and Mom are just excited. No, it's okay. I'm happy they're happy. That's good. Make sure to have a healthy baby. Brian's words were the most encouraging. From that day, my life changed drastically. Hazel took over the household chores. She had pushed on to me. Meanwhile, I was able to relax and rest. Dominic no longer asked me to help with work. This way, I can look forward to a calm delivery. Several months later, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl without any complications. However, when Dominic and Hazel came to see the baby, their faces fell with disappointment. Despite feeling anxious, I showed them my daughter. Look, a healthy girl. We named her Luna. Oh, that's a nice name, Hazel said, clearly disappointed. Dominic felt the same. Well, having a sister will make a boy grow up strong. Make sure the next one is a boy, he said. Yes, I replied, confused. After Dominic and Hazel left, I asked Brian about their strange behavior. Was something wrong with Dominic and them? Probably because it's a girl, he guessed. What do you mean? As I pressed, Brian began to explain with a dejected look. His family had been running a company since his grandfather's time, and as it was a family business, there was a need for a male heir. Dominic and Hazel had been hoping for a boy, so my giving birth to a girl was a disappointment to them. Well, make sure the next one is a boy, Brian said, looking dissatisfied. I was furious. Was he suggesting that a girl couldn't be a successor? That's not true. Girls can work too. In fact, for jewelry sales, a girl might even have an advantage. What's wrong with these people? I found myself wanting a divorce right away. But with Luna here, that wasn't an option. I'll endure at least until Luna is grown. After being discharged from the hospital, my life reverted to how it was before pregnancy. Every day, I was burdened with household and work duties, on top of taking care of Luna. Enduring the pain, I carried on with my life. Eventually, I became pregnant again, but once more, it was a girl. We named her Stella, but Dominic, Hazel, and even Brian showed little interest. Years passed, and I experienced my third pregnancy, which turned out to be twin girls. Predictably, Dominic, Hazel, and Brian showed no interest, even going as far to dump more household chores on me. Even after giving birth to the twins, Mary and Lily, the situation didn't change. I started seriously considering divorce. Then, Brian and I had a heated argument over educational policies. She's just a girl, she'll be fine on her own. Nowadays, girls also need to study with college in mind. Huh? As long as a woman looks good, she can get married. She doesn't need to study. Brian and I argued like this every day. Naturally, our relationship progressively worsened. Eventually, Brian began to spend nights away from home. He must be having an affair, I thought, growing angry. Enduring this isn't good for my health. I visited a detective agency nearby and requested an investigation into Brian's behavior. It'll take a few weeks for the results. I better prepare for everything. I made up my mind. First, I would explain the situation to my daughters. Dad and Mom might not be able to get along anymore. Mary and Lily looked confused, but Luna and Stella seemed to understand. I'm fine. I hate Dad anyway. Yeah, Dad is always angry, so I don't like him either. It seems my daughters take after me. With this, I can find the right time to bring up divorce. I felt relieved. Then, one Sunday morning, someone visited early. Who could it be? As I wondered, Brian came in with a guest. Serenity, we need to talk. Brian had brought a young woman with him, who was smiling oddly, pleased with herself, and wore flashy makeup. Since you couldn't give me an heir, I found a woman who can. What? A woman who can produce an heir? Isn't that cheating? Confused, Brian continued, stroking the woman's belly. Well, that's the situation. At that moment, I understood everything. Brian continued with a nasty grin. I'm divorcing you because my mistress is pregnant with a son. You're a defective product for not bearing a son. So get out. Mistress? You can't mean that woman. Pointing at the woman next to Brian. Then the woman retorted, displeased. Don't point at me. I'm Aurora. How rude of a middle-aged woman. Exactly. That's why I'm dumping you. Brian and Aurora sneered together. I was dumbfounded. How can she openly admit to being a mistress? Normally, you'd hide such a thing. And to divorce because his mistress is pregnant? He should limit his selfishness. Does he have any idea how much I've tolerated? Well, divorce suits me fine. I have plenty of evidence, and he's admitted to the affair. I'll discard this husband for compensation. I'll make sure he hits rock bottom. Be prepared. I clenched my back teeth and headed to my room. There, I noticed my 4 daughters outside the room. Holding them close, I whispered, I couldn't make up with Dad. Don't cry, Mom. We're here for you. Luna comforted me. I hugged my 4 daughters tightly. Then we began preparing to move. I contacted a moving company and also called my mom, Grace. Mom? About what happened recently. It didn't work out, did it? Mom gently asked. I had informed her when I requested the investigation. It seems Brian is cheating, so I might get a divorce. Yeah, that's right. Then you've got a tough road ahead. Come back home immediately. I'm preparing everything. Thank you, Mom. Later, I moved back to my parents' house with my 4 daughters. Although I had been worried, my daughters didn't seem down. In fact, they were happy to go to their grandma's house. But that doesn't resolve everything. The discussions about child support and compensation weren't finished yet. Moving back, I could resume working as a hairstylist like before. But it would be tough without child support. I hope we can have a reasonable discussion. That was my only concern. After moving, I started discussions with Brian about compensation in the divorce proceedings. But, as expected, we were at an impasse. You're divorcing me because you cheated. It's because you couldn't bear a son. I haven't done anything wrong. Brian boldly claimed. Does he not think cheating is wrong? I was appalled by his childish attitude. Eventually, months passed without any resolution. By then, Brian had stopped answering my calls. I guess I have no choice but to go to his office. I was contemplating this when suddenly my mobile phone rang. It was Brian on the other end. Serenity, can you talk right now? After all this time avoiding me, now you want to talk? How self-centered. I retorted with displeasure. Brian went silent, so I hurried to continue before he could hang up. So, what do you want to talk about? I was wondering, would you consider remarrying me? I thought I had misheard. So I asked Brian to clarify. Did you just say remarry? You're joking, right? I'm not joking. Things are just the worst right now. Brian sounded quite down. Despite the hassle, I asked why. Brian then shared his story. A few days before the call, he received a message at work from his parents that Aurora was about to give birth. Thinking the long-awaited son was arriving, Brian rushed to the hospital. By the time he arrived, Aurora had already given birth, but Brian found his parents standing dumbfounded outside the delivery room. Did something happen to Aurora? Brian asked the doctor. The doctor said the birth was successful. Curious, Brian went to see the baby. At the newborn room, a nurse pointed out Brian's child, but the moment he saw the baby, Brian turned pale. The baby clearly wasn't mine. But if it was just born, I began suggesting perhaps it was too soon to tell, but Brian interrupted loudly. The baby's skin was dark, but Aurora and I are both white. It was evidently not his child. I figured as much. I found myself responding. Brian retorted with displeasure. What do you mean by figured? Before you decided to divorce me, I had an investigation done on you, I explained. An investigation? Brian was shocked. I continued nonchalantly. I had your affair partner, Aurora. Was that her name? I had her investigated too. And? She had other men she was close to, including a black man. Maybe he's the real father, I teased. But I thought, you really believe that? It's laughable. Like a young woman would be satisfied with a middle-aged man. I laughed loudly at him. Brian's anger exploded, raising his voice. Shut up! Don't laugh! Ignoring Brian's words, I laughed heartily before bringing up the subject of child support and compensation. About the child support and compensation. Shut up! I said we should remarry. And I said no, I yelled back, and Brian shouted even louder. If you don't want to remarry, then you raise the kids. That's the condition for paying compensation and child support. What an outrageous thing to say. I was so appalled I was left speechless, and he hung up on me. After that, the phone went unanswered. If he won't take my calls, we can't talk. I don't want to see him, but I guess I have to go to his company, I muttered as I shoved my mobile phone into my pocket. Then I went down to the beauty salon below. Natalie, a client, was waiting there, and Mom was attending to another client. I greeted Natalie with a friendly smile. Sorry to keep you waiting. It's okay, but I'm sorry for the trouble with that matter. Natalie was considerate enough to not mention Brian's name. No, it's fine. We're just arguing about the compensation. Are you really okay? Natalie looked at me with concern. I faked a smile. He doesn't think he's done anything wrong, so he doesn't plan to apologize. That's tough. It would ignite a firestorm if it got out on the internet, but I don't plan to blow things up that much. I laughed as I responded. I noticed Mom's client eavesdropping. It's better than bad rumors spreading. I pretended not to notice and started my work. Eventually, Mom's client left while I was cutting Natalie's hair. Then Natalie spoke up. Serenity, about the client just now. Shouldn't you have asked her not to spread the word? It seemed Natalie also noticed the eavesdropping. If bad rumors spread, maybe they'll learn their lesson, I replied with a smile. Soon, Natalie's haircut was finished. I left the rest to Mom and retreated to the back. Then I tried calling Brian again, but he didn't answer. A few days later, on a day the beauty salon was closed, I went to Brian's company. However, Brian wasn't there. I was told he was at the store. Reluctantly, I headed to the store. As soon as I entered, I heard a familiar voice. Oh, what brings you here? Looking up, I saw Hazel standing at the counter. It's been a while. How vulgar of you to barge in here. Despite her bold words, Hazel seemed somewhat emaciated, likely affected by the revelation that Aurora's child wasn't Brian's. I addressed Hazel with a disdainful smile. Can't help it. He's been avoiding me. What did you say? I just want to be compensated. How do you plan to take responsibility? My words caused a stir among the customers in the store. Hazel, sensing the situation, began to panic suddenly. Please, not here. Stop this. But it's all about settling with money, right? That's better, isn't it? I said this exaggeratedly, causing quite a commotion around us. Unable to bear it, Hazel grabbed my hand and led me to the back of the store where Brian was working. Hazel addressed him. Brian, you have a visitor. Brian looked up, and our eyes met. Serenity? Since you've been ignoring me, I had to come to you. No, I wasn't ignoring you. It's just that... Brian became flustered. I told him, laughing. What about the child support and compensation? That is, well, you can pay, right, Mr. Future President? I said this sarcastically. Brian finally seemed to give in. All right, I'll pay. Just stop. This way, the discussion about child support and compensation finally began. However, this wasn't really a discussion. The details of the compensation had already been decided. It was just a matter of Brian agreeing and signing. He had been avoiding this because he was fixated on remarrying me. My visit was also to firmly reject any talk of remarriage. I watched Brian sign with a mocking smile. After leaving the store, I was approached by Aurora. She was wearing miserable clothes, a far cry from her appearance that day. "Long time no see. What happened to you? You look terrible." I said this mockingly, and Aurora scowled. "It's your fault because you wouldn't take the child." Aurora was kicked out by Brian because I refused to take her child, and she was blaming me. She didn't seem to understand the concept of reaping what you sow. However, this meant I would be criticized, so I diverted Aurora's attention. "Don't complain to me. Ask Brian for child support." "But Brian is angry that my child isn't his." Aurora looked down. I smirked unpleasantly. "I'm sure he'll listen now. He was in a good mood since he listened to me." Of course, that was a lie. However, if Aurora entered the store, an argument was bound to happen. But then, it would seem as if, following our previous interaction, a disturbance had occurred. Brian's company's reputation could be destroyed in an instant. That's what I thought. "Is that so? Then I'll go." Aurora entered the store. I watched her go, and then walked away from the shop. I didn't check what happened, but that evening, local news reported a woman causing a disturbance in the store. Hopefully, this taught them a lesson. I was smugly satisfied. However, a few days later, the situation took an unexpected turn. This was a few days after I met with Brian. While preparing to open the shop, the store's phone rang. "Thank you for calling. Is this for a reservation?" I assumed it was a customer and responded with the usual greeting. However, what came through the phone was Hazel's voice, mixed with the sound of a commotion. "This isn't about a reservation. What have you done?" Hazel?" I asked, taken aback. Hazel raised her voice. "It's your doing, isn't it? The store is swamped with people right now." "Excuse me? The store is popular. Is that what you mean?" "No. Everyone's here to cancel their orders." The call ended abruptly with loud voices in the background, leaving me perplexed. After getting permission from Mom, I headed to Brian's company store. As I approached, I saw a huge crowd outside. Dominic, Hazel, and Brian were trying to calm the gathered crowd. Soon, Hazel spotted me. The moment she did, Hazel raised her voice. "What are you going to do about this?" "What happened here?" "Rumors of bankruptcy are spreading, all because of you." I was at a loss, having no idea what she meant, so I asked Hazel to explain from the beginning. According to Hazel, after my visit to the store, a customer came in wanting to cancel a jewelry purchase. Hazel, having not yet ordered the product, accepted the cancellation. However, cancellations began to increase until a crowd formed. I had an inkling about the cause, but asked anyway. "Why did this happen?" "There's a rumor on the internet saying it's dangerous." While talking, the crowd pushed me away from Brian and the others, forcing me to leave the scene. I learned the full story a few days later. The whole incident unfolded like this. It all started with a conversation in my beauty salon. That day, a client who had overheard my conversation with Natalie posted anonymously on the internet. "There's someone arguing over compensation. The son of a jewelry company's president." They must have thought it would be safe to post anonymously. Actually, that alone wasn't the problem. But a few days later, Hazel and I ended up arguing in the store. Someone who saw that posted similarly online. There's a commotion at a certain jewelry shop. They're talking about compensation. Then the news about Aurora topped it off, making it easy to identify the company and store, leading to rumors that the store was in danger. This turned into bankruptcy rumors, causing customers to rush for cancellations, similar to a bank run during a financial crisis. Consequently, the company went bankrupt, leaving Dominic, Hazel, and Brian in debt. Now they're living on part-time jobs, leaving me worried about receiving child support and compensation. I should have taken the child support and compensation in one go, I occasionally thought, but living quietly and happily with my 4 daughters is fulfilling enough. My daughters are more important than money, without a doubt.